Hello, welcome back to Just Opinion Media Review, and today's movie is a man named Otto. This is gonna be the series finale, at least for now. And sometimes how I always talk about movies or about the media is I kind of explain it, sometimes poorly, from kind of start to finish. I try to do like the big plot points, but then sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, okay, I need to explain it in a certain way, or explain like details, small details, and it's like, oh, that really didn't have anything to do with the movie. Today's gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna try not to spoil like hardly anything. I will be upfront that this does have suicidal attempts in the movie. It's a comedy drama, I would say, and it stars Tom Hanks. And the premise is Otto had lost his wife probably about like 6 months ago, and he's kind of at the point where he's just like, I don't want to be here, and so he tries to, commit suicide. But every time he tries to commit suicide, he ends up either failing at it, or somebody like knocks on the door, and so, but every time that it happens, there's always kind of a funny aspect. So it kind of blends with like seriousness, but then it's like we're gonna have a laugh. Like one of them, I'll give away one of them. He tries hanging himself. He puts a bunch of newspapers on the ground, and the beam isn't strong enough, and so he's almost about to die, and then the thing snaps, or the thing snaps, and he falls to the ground. He sees a coupon for 2-for-1 flowers. He's like, oh, and and so he takes the coupon and goes on about his day. But it's a very, I would say it's probably one of the best movies I've seen in a while, and maybe the reason why I liked it so much was because of Tom Hanks. I've always been, most things I see Tom Hanks in, I like, and so seeing him play this character, and then like I said, with the seriousness, but then the comedy part after it, and basically the backstory is he lives in a gated community, and I use air quotes gated, which you would see in the movie. But it's kind of the present with how the past is shaping the present, and then kind of like what the future has. And he's kind of like, one big thing is this gated community is kind of, there's a company that owns it, and they don't care. And he's kind of like, well, if I was still on the homeowners association, this would be a lot different. But you guys voted me out, so I don't care. And it's a really good movie. And I didn't look up. I'll do it live. When this movie came out, but the fact that we did the Alexa and it didn't get nominated for any Oscars is, maybe it didn't have time, but this movie is pretty fucking good. So it came out 2022. Release date January. Okay, so maybe it didn't have time. So maybe next Oscars it will be nominated. But it's it definitely show kind of, it's not glorifying suicide, if that's kind of what you're worried about. Is like, but it's definitely like, you have a purpose, even though if you don't know what your purpose is. Because that's like, I was talking to my dad because we watched it. So I watched this YouTuber named I think his name's Cool Duder, and he shops at, he'll go to Walmart, Target, and Best Buy, and he'll look at all the new releases. And I kind of like to see like what's coming out, so at least then I can look at trailers prior to buying the movie. And I saw Tom Hanks, and it's a bright color yellow box, for the DVD box. And I was like, oh man, okay, let me see what this is. So I had like a 2-minute trailer, and I watched it, and there's a scene in the trailer. There's a UPS truck, and he's like, you know what, I don't like. So I think it's an inside joke. If you know Tom Hanks, I think my dad made a point where he's like, I think they're referencing things from his previous movies. So he was on Castaway, which I think he was a FedEx driver, and FedEx is a white truck. And so this UPS truck was there, and he's like, I don't like brown things in here. And he's like, I mean trucks. I'm not racist or anything. And I was like, and that sold me, because I was like, oh, is this gonna be like a comedy version of, it's like, oh, I can't think of his name. I was having problems. Clint Eastwood, I think it's called Sandra, something where it's an old man kind of yelling out off his porch, and so we're sitting down, and my mom's like, yeah, I heard this was like, because we saw the rated PG-13, and it said suicidal things, and my mom's like, yeah, I think it's kind of a suicidal like a movie or something like that. I was like, oh, that's not what I got from that. And I only watched 30 seconds of the 2-minute trailer, but yeah, it's definitely it's a good movie. There's one part I want to bring up, and it's the ending. So he ends up collapsing, and he has a heart attack, and it's kind of like, okay, is this gonna be his final moments? And so you're kind of like sitting there, you're starting to tear up. I every time they cut back to him talking to his girlfriend that became his future wife, I was like, oh, I'm starting to tear up. And so I was like, when he collapsed, I was like, is this the moment? And then that wasn't the moment, but I think it led to a punchline, so I think that's why it was there. But then the movie just kind of goes on just a little bit longer, and it's kind of like, okay, there's certain parts which I don't want to spoil, and because I do think of all the movies out of like all the movies, media stuff I've recommended, I definitely think you guys should watch this one. But there's a scene, it's like, okay, he finally got to achieve something that he wanted to achieve a long time ago, and once you see it, once you once you see the backstory of it to then, it's like, okay, that makes sense. But it's kind of like, it would have been not nice, but he does end up dying, which like I said, spoilers, he ends up, he does. But it's kind of like, you had that moment. It's like, I honestly, I started thinking about it. I was like, it would have been so much cooler. The movie I think would have been just a little bit better if they ended with him sitting on the porch and looking out, and he doesn't die, because you're like, okay, he's going to do. He's every time he fails, oh, it's just a moment. No, he's still alive, and then it's kind of like, oh, the movie just ends. So, but yeah, definitely my review score, and sorry, I'm all over the place with this, but my review score would be honestly, I give it a 5 out of 5. I don't know how many 5 out of 5s I give. I know I don't even get that many, because most of them I get like 4s or 3s, but definitely think you guys should watch it. Like I said, it's not, there's no grotesque moments. Like I said, it's all, he's gonna do it, and then it doesn't happen, and it's kind of fun. We laugh it off, and he's just kind of like gets up and moves about his day. He's like, all right, well, I guess I didn't do it this time. I think there's like 3 attempts, and each time he's he fails, and just kind of like laughs it off. And there is one scene which is, there's a bunch of like, not teenagers, but like younger, probably like in their late teens, when something happens, and instead of actually trying to help, they're just like, oh, like they're on their phones like recording live, and they're like, oh my god, look at this, look what's happening, oh my god, and it's just like, yep, so that's how it is right now. Where if something happens, it's like, instead of calling 911, it's like, oh, I gotta get this on film, and then I gotta upload it, and so, but I'd say everything, for the most part, everything that's set up in the movie happens, and then you start to figure out the reasons why he is the way he is today. Oh, and the other thing I really like, so I've watched a lot of, I'm using air quotes, Karen videos where somebody's grouchy, and so people kind of return with like anger, and and so in this movie, Tom Hanks or Otto is kind of a grumpy old man, and one of the characters is like sarcastic with with him, and I'm like, I wish we would see more of that instead of being angry back at the person, like, because that's kind of how I am. Not always, but I like to be sarcastic. I like to be sarcastic in serious moments and fun moments and stuff like that. And I'm not always good with it, but I always try to get a laugh out of somebody, or at least kind of like, oh look, you're being dumb right now, but I'm going to be sarcastic instead of yelling at you and getting angry with you. I'm going to be sarcastic with you. Stuff like that. I tell the story to everybody I work with, but I used to work at a hospital, and there was a doctor who basically held his, I was like a janitor, and he always held his head high, like you didn't exist to him. And instead of being angry and being like, well, fuck this dude, I was kind of like, hey, how's it going, man? And every time he would keep walking by. I mean, probably about the fifth or sixth time, he finally acknowledged me, and it's like, look, see? And so like stuff like that, where instead of like being like, fuck this guy, I'm just like, yeah, well, let's make it a game. Sometimes when people are pissed at me, and I know they're pissed at me and they don't want to talk to me, I'm like, oh, how's it going? And I get no response. Next day, how's it going? And I would just keep going and going and going. And so like when that character did that, I was like thank God, instead of her getting angry and aggressive towards this guy and being like, because she's Hispanic, so they could have went the route like, oh, maybe he hates Hispanics, maybe he's a grumpy old man, she brought him food. And it was just one of those things where it's like, I would love to see the people be more like her, where they're like, hey, you can't always get angry, you can't always just be like this, you can't always write somebody off. And I think that's a good story to tell. And I hope this is the first time I'm not holding the mic, so hope that I'm not too far away and you guys actually hear me. But yeah, it is a pretty good story. I think you guys definitely should check it out, and hopefully it just didn't make the rounds for this Oscars, and the next Oscars it'll get nominated, because I think this is probably like one of the best movies that I've seen. And it doesn't glorify suicide, it glorifies, in my opinion, love. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, this is the finale, at least for now. I don't know when I'll be back to doing videos. But yeah, I think a good one to go out on, right? Alright, later guys.